As many people sit down and look forward to this brand new epic from Netflix, the streaming giant, that have paid an absolute fortune, let's not forget, for this. There's been a lot of things that people have discussed, of course. Meghan famously said, if you remember, on that red carpet a few months back now, that they were working on several projects, and several projects was going to be something that apparently Netflix were going to enjoy and devour, and this was going to be wonderful. What we've seen so far is Polo from Prince Harry, which didn't exactly light any candles, did it? And now, literally hours away from the fact that we've got, as ever, with Meghan, which was going to be called originally, of course, American Riviera Orchard, but that sort of fell foul. What's fascinating, I wanted to share this with you today, is the behind the scenes of exactly how this started, and more importantly, where it's gone and how it's really ended up. So, without further ado, let's dive straight in. Hi, nice to see you. Thank you so much as ever for taking the time out to join me today. I wanted to share this with you, the information that I have, because as I say, a lot is riding on this, a lot, more than people realise for Meghan Markle, because the money is never as much as, I've told you before, that people think. It simply isn't as much as they make out. It's really all about whether people download it, people stay and watch it for the duration. And I would say, let me tell you, that people will watch this programme simply because it's curiosity, it's almost TV gold. From what we've seen so far of the trailers, you kind of come away thinking, who thought this was a good idea? Now, one of the biggest problems that Meghan's had is relatability. When you think about it, she's never really spoken much on camera. She uses music backgrounds to demonstrate the story, whichever sort of old school tune she decides. That can work and can't work in your favour, depending on which way you want to go about it. You see, part of the problem originally, and the idea for American Riviera with this cooking show, was a totally different concept, as you can imagine. You see, way back, over a year ago now, when they were starting this was going to be a vehicle to showcase Meghan's warmth, talent, accessibility, and the fact that we'd got it all wrong. Suddenly we were going to meet the authentic Meghan. We've seen many guises of the authentic Meghan, and I think certain staff members have met the authentic Meghan. Do you know what I'm saying, chums? But where it gets interesting is the idea originally was to get major celebrity chefs, or indeed famous celebrity pals, along the likes, if you like, of Beyonce and people like that, Rita Ora, and they were going to come on, share their favourite recipe and guide Meghan through it, possibly making it together to serve, whether it be to charities, homelessness, that sort of thing. That really was the concept, the idea. And this really, in my opinion, I don't know if you agree, would have worked a lot better, because less chat, not exactly much pressure on her, and the celebrity could take the lead. The celebrity then really has to come in, if you like, with this. And I thought that would have worked very well from what I was told. But obviously, as many people know, there were massive cuts at Netflix, and obviously these weren't Meghan's ideas, as ever, we have to say allegedly. So things moved on rather dramatically and rather quickly. Now, again, where it gets even more fascinating for me is the fact that the second sort of conception of the idea was simply this, that Meghan was going to go around looking at her heritage roots and sort of, discovering various recipes from her own heritage, whatever that might be, right? Whether it's Maltese, Nigerian, Californian, whatever. She was going to go and do that. But that proved a little bit too expensive. Even though, they'd made a lot of money from the gossip thing with Meghan and Harry, Netflix were not that keen to spend that level of money. And here's an interesting fact, never at any point did Meghan Markle offer the opportunity to have her home, a house, her own kitchen on display. This was out of bounds. No, it was either going to be the studio set or they rented a house. Now, quite why you wouldn't want to be authentic in that level, they never really understood. But you see, they say the bigger difference that you have with Meghan all along is nobody truly knows who she is. She famously said on that chat show, if you remember, I'm a total fraud. And some people may say, absolutely, sister, because nobody really knows. She presents various degrees of herself, very conflicting. You see, when you see her coming out of that building in New York, she's very coy, cottish, with her hair scraped back in the bun and just slyly waving to the camera as if, you know, shock horror, there's a camera there. And then, of course, you get the more stronger version of Meghan at the polo events where she's shoving in, nicking, of course, the tournament statue and all that sort of stuff, because it's all about her. You know, she's placing people around, used to organising people. On a recent video, she pointed out that, you know, she loves making jam, cooking, crafting and gardening. Well, news to us, and news to people over here in the United Kingdom, and news to people, of course, at Windsor and at Kensington Palace, because when the gardeners from Kensington Palace said, would you like to look around and maybe we can show you, apparently no interest whatsoever, right? Maybe because it wasn't Meghan's garden. Who knows? But nonetheless, you would have thought looking around royal gardens were the very best gardens, if you had interest in that area, would have been very good for you. Apparently nobody ever noted her interest in beekeeping before. This was another thing that came from nowhere, you know, because when that was highlighted to the fact that she could go and look, for instance, at the hotel where Catherine spent her final night as a single lady at the Goring, where they have their own bee sanctuary on the top level, no, she wasn't really interested in that either. Maybe she was suffering from that so-called depression. Who knows? But back to as ever. So now after that incarnation had gone out the window, that's where it fell flat for a long time. Nobody knew what direction that Meghan wanted to go, or indeed was going to go. You see how this works. So now, for moving forward, what happened then was they decided, well, okay, let's go back to, this concept, because they were kind of keen to get something out of her. I mean, let's not forget, as I've said, chumps, they've spent a lot of money. Now, the bigger problem that you have is making any cooking show, and I can say this, I've made a lot of television programs in my time. There's two things that you need: a warm and engaging host, possibly somebody that you've met before, or if the host is new to the whole concept, bring in somebody that the public like, that perhaps they warmed to many years ago. So then you've got this sort of warmth factor. One of the things that they wanted to do at Netflix was to have Harry more centrally featured. And the idea really was something akin to a good friend of mine, Tom Parker Bowles, has written an excellent book called, The Cooking in the Crown. The idea was to look at, historical dishes and how they've changed over the years. And perhaps Harry, get this, could dress up in various guises of historical background and then taste the food. Oh no, she would, no, that's nothing to do with Meghan. That wasn't who she was about. But we found that, didn't we, with the Spotify and all that sort of stuff. So you get the mess that this was now in. So by the time they'd really pushed for the cameras to roll, and they really wanted them to roll on this level, this was the concept that we got. But it didn't come without problems, as you can imagine. Even on the day of the recording, Meghan, who had literally authorised and signed off everything from the cameraman to the crew to the lighting to the colorisation to the clothes that she was going to be wearing, she was unhappy about certain aspects of it. And what you see is a lot of her sort of ad-libbing, throughout the programme, which is fine. But, they had a narrative that they wanted, what they call cue points for the chef to say, oh yeah, I remember when I made this in Korea or whatever. Didn't seem to want to stick to that problem. So what you're seeing is a very fractious, some might suggest, how can you put this, thrown together idea at best. And that's what you're seeing with these clips that are now put on Instagram. Now, what kind of infuriated Netflix was the Valentine's stuff with the children. As you can imagine, suddenly you've got Lily, hand, Archie speaking and mincing across with the, love heart strawberries. They wanted all of that in the show. That was the selling point. But no, that couldn't be done. But suddenly, in desperation calls and on the Instagram stuff, now it can be done. You see how this works. And I told you previously about how Harry, apparently according to Us Weekly, doesn't have a problem with Meghan utilising the children on Instagram. No. What he actually said was he liked literally just the Valentine stuff. There was no mention of the children. At that point, he didn't even know they were popping up. And at that point, he was never even discussed about it. But things decided to take a turn, literally for the worst, regarding as ever with Meghan. You know, chums, what's really odd about Meghan Markle and her sort of onslaught into the world of being an influencer, whatever you want to call it, is her lack of sort of ability to be able to connect with an audience. You know, it was suggested that perhaps she even wanted to, offer up a watch party online, get together a community, all of that sort of stuff. If you remember way back, she sort of teased that magazine, The Cut, saying, "You want to know a secret? I'm coming back to the Instagram." And that took ages, simply because, of course, Prince Harry's narrative was a totally different narrative. He didn't want her to return to the world of social media because he felt that this was a bad thing. It wasn't a good thing at all. You get the picture. But you see, the problem with Meghan is she wants to do things her own way in her own time. And very quickly it was, no, I don't want to do that. The things that she was really looking for to promote this show were things like the glosses, Tatler, Vogue, Vanity Fair. Well, you can understand how Vanity Fair suddenly got switched out the pot, It wasn't going to be happening. And really, when you think, the Hollywood Reporter put the kibosh on that, seemingly because now this came around about how difficult she was to work with. Now, as I told you before, one of the things that Netflix and her team at the time suggested was that Meghan embrace all of this negativity, the sort of thing of like, make fun of it, make light of it. Basically because, if you look at it, anybody who's been deemed a diva, if you take the sting out of the tale, then people think, well, is it true or is it gossip or something like that? But Meghan's let the gossip ride and seemingly just sent out her number one show pony, Prince Harry, from time to time. What really alarmed the bosses at Netflix, actually, was this. Truly, this did shock them. This is, of course, the trailer and, some people might say, a direct copy for copy, that is Pamela Anderson's cooking show, But there were many others. I mean, at the very start of American Riviera, Goop looked very similar to, of course, Meghan's trailer for her American Riviera thing, right? So you can understand that when she went to the Hamptons to do the influencer thing, people stayed away from her like honey because they thought, oh no, this is not going to be very good, particularly as she was a new queen on the influencer market. But the biggest problem that she had was that she was told by her then team, the team that then very quickly left, if you get my drift, that, she'd have no problem securing a mega following on Instagram. And that really was the selling point to Netflix. They figured, well, if we could sell clips down that route, build the show up that way, then we're on to something of a winner. Now, as we've seen over the last few days, it's clearly not working. The latest trailer, which has gone out, and you may have seen, well, apparently that wasn't the trailer that Meghan wanted, but they ummed and ahed, and there was no firm decision. Now we've got a new head of communications, and some might say, all little, all too late. You get the picture again. Now, moving forward, as I say, on the eve of this launch that people are saying is going to be terrific and this is what's going to make Meghan a billionaire, I truly wish her all the very best, because making television is not easy. To try and get that audience is not an easy feat, but you need to build it up. So far, we have had opportunities, I can tell you, that Meghan has had to go on late night chat shows, to do very prestigious interviews, but she's been told time and time again that she is a brand that doesn't need to go out there and sell it. She is Queen Bee, to coin a phrase. People will just watch it because it's Meghan Markle. But the bigger problem that she turned down was the fact that to work on her likability, it was suggested from her team that maybe she might want to warm up the vehicle, as it were, the engine, and have a few reminder acting lessons. That went down well, as you can imagine. But I know what they mean. Like, acting from a script is totally different to acting interaction on a daytime TV show doing a cooking segment. You get the picture. So now what you're left with is this very fragmented program that Meghan Markle has put together over a year ago with no sellable products. And let me tell you, Netflix knew that that would never be the case. They knew that the products were never going to get off the line. Hence the reason they tried to partner with her, as she famously said in the trailer. And she thought about it and, why not? What they basically thought was, well, with no products, we're not going to go anything. Now, behind the scenes, I can tell you 100% that Netflix think this is comedy gold. Shall we say the gay mafia that work in Netflix say this is terrific fun. I've seen the bulk of the shows, I can tell you that, right? And they're not bad, they're not good. But what are they? They're not really entertainment. What they are is really a woman who's very rich, very famous, and very powerful in some respects, but not necessarily selling anything. And what you need if you want to become an influencer and to make some money, all of that sort of stuff, is the accountability, the likable factor. You tune in because whether it's somebody cooking badly or brilliantly, like over here, we used to have a wonderful chef called Rusty Lee, a terrific laugh, who made a mess of many things, but was so warm and cheery and everything that you just wanted to watch her. She was just such good fun. Of course, there are famous ones, aren't there, like the cooking canon, Fanny Craddock I've mentioned before. Meghan is in none of those things. The bigger problem that everybody knows, and I have to say this is the reason truly why I believe the show will fail, is seemingly because nobody knows the host. Nobody knows Meghan Markle. Seemingly, she doesn't have much of a sense of humour. There's no blooper reel. There's no fun factor. I mean, having a guest star saying, this is one of the most glamorous moments of my life, either says that that particular person has had a very sheltered and dull life, or indeed it's scripted. But either way, that's what we're seeing. Now, of course, many other people will pick apart the clothes, the hair, the makeup, all of that sort of stuff. I think the bigger issue, if you want to be straight down the line and impartial, is it's just not connectable. Nice enough program, over all those episodes with people you've never heard of. Do you really care? And was it really that bad to put this lifestyle program out against the terrible situation with the LA fires? Speculation is rife that re-edits went round the block, and consequently, eventually, they just gave in and said, this is the program. So this is the program that people are seeing. Now, Meghan is pushing hard, along with her agency that are hanging by a thread, for a second series, because this proves to her and to the world that she's worth investing in. Netflix, I would suggest, will take their time to move back, very quietly decide, maybe we'll make a summer special or a winter special. This turning into something of a mega hit, a reoccurring series, unless she can now find the guest stars that they truly want, and they are pushing hard, well then it really will be another one-off, like the Heart of Invictus or indeed Polo. So the several things that she spoke about on the red carpet, Netflix apparently turned down many, many ideas. But this apparently they felt had legs. But even they've now decided this has failed to rise to the top. Either way, enjoy as ever. Neil Sean in the very heart of London.